Hello, so what I'm going to do today is make some dishcloths and some dusters and some window cleaning cloths for the dolls. So I went into town and into Poundland and I bought a pack of cloths, and then I took my scissors and I cut a long piece about an inch off one side there, and then a long piece about an inch off one side there. I put my dressmaking scissors down after cutting these out and I can't find them, so just showing you with these. And then once I'd had that cut out, I cut all the way around the edge and cut off all that stitching, and then I cut down through the center there, so you've got 1, 2, and then I cut down through the center here, so you've got 4 altogether, and I would have cut just along there like that. So you've got your 4 pieces of cloth, okay? And then we're going to just take those to the side. All right, and then I cut, so this is one of my long pieces of fabric. What I did was I just cut it in a long strip along, and what I want to do is just make a tiny loop in the center of my fabric like that, so I can squeeze my doll's hand inside so that they'll be able to hold on to the cloths whilst they're cleaning. So before we do that, all we're going to do now is take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to do a zigzag stitch all the way around the outside of the cloth. Now if you don't want to do a zigzag stitch, what you can do is fold it over twice. Alright, and you can do that on all sides and then just do a plain stitch all the way around, or you can just hand sew a blanket stitch all the way around the outside. So one thing I always try to do when I come to my machine and I turn it on is to check that I've got the right foot on, and I try and make this a little routine when I actually turn the machine on. So I look at my foot, I look at my stitch, what stitch I might be on. So as you can see, my foot, I've got a big wide foot, and that's the foot I would need for doing a zigzag stitch. I check which stitch I'm on. Now mine is always goes back to the default one, which is the straight stitch, but this time I'm going to take it here and I'm going to make it into the zigzag stitch, and you can see it's a zigzag. You might have something on yours here, along here, or you might have something here to change the stitch into a zigzag. Okay, I like to check my thread is okay, and I like to go through and just check everything there is all right. Okay, so I always do that when I first start, I think it just gives you that opportunity to make sure you're going to start off right, because especially if you're using a delicate fabric which will make a mark in it, like something like a chiffon or something, you don't really want to be unpicking it. So you've cut it all out and it took a long time to cut out, and then you go on and you've done a zigzag stitch to start off by mistake. So always just have a quick little check. So all we're going to do now with these cloths is, when I do start a zigzag, I like to start just on the fabric. Okay, and then I'm just going to press down on my foot and run this all the way around. Oh, can you see I've not actually got to the edge of mine, so I want to keep it on the edge, and that's it. And then when you get to your corner, if you have your needle in the down position, it will stay in there. Okay, and wiggle that around, and you know that that is going to be on that very edge, so run it all the way down again. Let's turn that one, there we go, and just carry on going all the way around with that zigzag, and there you have a lovely little finished cloth for cleaning the windows for your dolls. Take off the threads. Okay, anything which is loose there. Alright, and then I'm just going to take that other long piece which we did, and I'm just going to stitch straight all the way to the bottom. Alright, so let's just get that on there where I want it to be. Okay, now what you could do is, before you cut this off, you could put your zigzag stitch on it to start whilst it's still on the long piece if you wanted to. And then you can go across that piece there and then get to the other side and run all the way down exactly the same along the other side. Oops, that one came off a little bit, so I'm just going to pop it back there and stitch across there. That's it. Alright, so there you go, you've got a nice neat piece of stitched long fabric there. So I'm just looking at Alice's hand, and for it to fit I probably need to have a piece about this long. Okay, so I've just sort of put it over. I want a little bit so I can sew on this side, and then I'll get another. Once I've sewn that side on, I'll just measure it again onto her hand, and I want a little bit about there. So I'm just going to cut it there. Oops, Alice. That's a strange position. She's obviously doing her yoga. There we go. Okay, let's pop you over there out the way a minute so you don't get banged. So we're going to just pop that back through the sewing machine and just catch that edge where we just did it, and then we'll take it onto there and we'll stitch it on so that it fits onto her hand. So what I want to do is I want it to stitch this hand side on first and then come back and work out where that needs to be stitched on that piece just there, okay, on Alice's hand. So here we are at the sewing machine, and I've stitched this end here on, as you can see. Just going to go now and take Alice's hand and work out the sort of size which I would want it. Now I might want to put it on her wrist like that, because I think that might be a better place for her to hold it. So if I wanted to do that, I'd have to make sure I had enough fabric so it would slide just off. So I'm wanting to sew it about there. So I just pop that underneath the machine. There we go, and we're going to just sew straight across, keeping that flat. I'm going to do a back stitch on this one as well. There we go. And that's it. And there's your little cloth all finished. So here she is holding her cloth. As you can see, that would make a good shot for doing pictures and things, with her able to move her hand up and down to move around. All I did was tuck the end of the cloth and I tucked it through that piece there. You could put it like that as well and have it so she's got it inside her hand, holding it down like that as well. So that makes a really good thing, and obviously she's not going to be able to drop it or anything, so that would work really well. I'm going to go ahead and do exactly the same with the other two cloths, and then she'll have a little cleaning set of cloths for her kitchen. And along that same theme, I have bought two little, it's called Dishmatic, and these were in the pound shop. So I got them there, came in a little pack of two. I like them because they were a lot thinner on the sides. Okay, so I'm just going to take them out, all right, and separate them. All right, and then you can see they've got this piece of black plastic on the back. I'm just going to cut that off, probably with my knife will be best. You could probably just do it with scissors or a knife or whatever you like. So I'm just going to take out quite a long piece of blade and just run it down over here where that glue is and cut that down the back there. There we go, let's just tuck that off there like that. Don't worry too much about that because we're going to put something on there. And for the doll's sort of size, you probably only want it about this sort of size, so I'm just going to cut it along there. So you'll get quite a few out of those. Okay. There we go. So I've cut this here. I'm just going to quickly trim the end there, so it sort of goes in that same sort of shape as the other one. So you've got that sort of nice sort of shape. Now if you think that's still too much, you can cut a little bit down off the back, but I'm not too worried about the size of it. I'm just going to cut it and neaten it up there like that, and then I'm going to go around the corner and just cut that end there as well, just like that. And I think that's about the right sort of size for my dolls. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to make a hole in through between the sponge and the scouring piece at the top, and I have a piece of elastic. And so I'm going to take my forceps and put my elastic onto the end of my forceps, and then right on the very tip, okay, and then lock my forceps into place, and then I'm just going to push them through. That's it. And then once you get that coming through the other side, there it is, you should be able to grab that, ungrip your forceps, grab that piece of elastic, and there you go. Okay, and then all you need to do is take your piece of elastic just like that, take it here and just tie a knot. There we are. Okay, like that, and then we'll just cut away just a couple of those long ends, and then pull that knot inside your sponge. All right, you want it to come in out of the way so you don't see the actual knot. Okay, so that's hiding in there, and that will fit nicely on your doll's hands. And there she has her little sponge in her hand. As you can see, that's great for filming with or just to play with, and that actually will stay in her hand and she'll be able to move that backwards and forwards just like that. Okay, so that is the little sponge. So now we are going to make a feather duster, and what I've used is a pen, an old pen, just the case of it, okay, and we are going to pop some feathers inside it, but before we do that, we don't want them too big, we want them sort of about here. Okay, so you need to cut all the feathers at the same length, about there, and then leave yourself about that much to go inside of your pen, so when you put it in you'll have about that much inside it. Okay, and that'll be how much she's going to actually use. So the next thing I'm going to do is just take my craft knife, and I'll keep turning my pen, and I'm just going to go all the way around and cut through the plastic. Okay, it will cut through, okay, like that. In the end, because I wasn't getting a straight enough cut, I just went over with a blade from one of my saws. This is my metal saw, so I just went over with that, and I just used it to get through the plastic. And then what I'm going to do now is take this onto an emery board and sand it all over. What you want to make sure is that you don't get any sharp ends, so I'm just going to sand that off until that's nice and neat on that bottom. Okay, and that just takes a while until you get it nice and sanded flat. So the feathers I got were actually from a feather duster which I bought and cut up. I quite often buy feather dusters because I use them feathers if I'm going to be doing things like scrapbooking and that sort of thing, and I want some fluffy bits. I'll buy a feather duster because it's much cheaper than going out and buying a packet of feathers. But they do sell feathers into little packs in places like the Works, so you can always go and get those. So I'm just now going to thread all my little ends into the end of my pen, and that'll just take a minute now. What you can do is pop some a little bit of hot glue in there before you start poking them in if you want to, or just some wood glue or something onto the end so that you've got that, so that they don't just pop straight out. Okay, I'm just going to do this to show you for a minute, and then so you're just going to pop them all in like that, and then you're going to get that nice feather look. Alright, and the more you keep putting in, the harder it would be to pull them out anyway. So you can just pop them all in there. They're quite stiff, so you can usually sort of get them into what you want them to be, or in the right position you want them to be in. Okay, so as I say, if you've popped a little bit of hot glue in there before you started, that will help a little bit to stop them from coming out. So there we go, you've got them. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do, let me just move these bits out of the way. They do go everywhere. Let's just get rid of that. Okay. Next thing we've got is some washi tape, and I want all of these bits of feathers out of the way really first before I use the washi tape. What I like to do when I'm using it is, if we can find the end, that is I like to stick it down like that first, onto the table, and then just fold it back on like that. Okay, now you don't need to have a big thick row like this. You can just use the small rows which you get in, they're about that sort of size, half an inch, and you can get those in Poundland and that sort of places, and they're absolutely fine to use, and you just would roll it around a few more times. Okay, so I stick it onto the table like that, and then I would cut. I don't use those nice scissors for when cutting tape. I only ever use my old scissors for cutting tape, because what happens is after a while you get a build up. I don't know if you can see that on there. You get a build up of stickiness on there. Can you see? That's quite easy to come off with a wet wipe, so that's not too bad, but I don't really want to be wiping and getting my nice scissors wet all the time. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my washi tape on, but I just want to cover just that tiny bit of ends of those feathers, and I'm going to roll it around like that. Okay, so I'm getting all those ends of the feathers, push it up, and that will just help you to keep those feathers in there. All right, there we go, and that's going to come on like that. Okay, and we're just going to roll it around again once more. That's it, and then I'm going to cut that. It's a bit sticky. Cut that along and seal that one down like that, so you've got that. Now if you wanted to, you could have just made your stick that big, so you could have cut it smaller on your pen, so that just was that sort of size. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to grab a bit of my wire. Now you don't have to have wire. You can use an elastic band. You can use, actually I think I might do that. I think this might be better. So you can just get a piece of elastic. Now I've got this. This is just a really old one, which I've been using for a long time. Okay, and I'm going to tie it to the size she would want it for her hand. So if she was having it in her hand, or if she was having it on her arm, so that you've got it on there, you'd want it about that, and it'll still pop off. And then we'll just tie a knot in there like that. Pull those two pieces through. I'm sure you'll be able to do it much easier than me, because my hands don't work as well as I expect yours does. There we go. Pull those two through like that. Okay, knock that up and just check it, because you can always undo it before you stick it all on, because there's nothing worse than you stick it on and it don't fit on her hand. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so then we're going to just trim off that bit. Alright, and then we're going to stick it on so that it lays like that. Okay, so you've got it coming up. I know you're going to get a little small bulge there where that is, but that's okay. And then we're going to roll it around the rest, okay, of that, and you will get a tiny bulge, but don't worry too much, because that will be underneath where our hand is. And I'm going to just pull that nice and tight down the bottom there, and then roll that around again. Okay, and that's it. And then you can, oops, what you don't want to do is what I just did there, which was make a fold in it. Okay, that will just hold that into position. There you go, that's nice, and that's on there nicely. Alright, and then I'm going to snip that off, neaten that up. Could just go along actually, I think, with my knife and get a nice neat cut along there like that. Oops, sticky. Okay, and then we'll just fold that down, fold it all the way around like so. And then this piece here on the end, I'm going to just very carefully poke inside there. Okay, just take your time, and it will just poke down inside that pen out of the way. Okay, mind you don't stab yourself with the scissors, especially if you're a trial. Be really careful. You probably would be better doing it like that. That's better. Okay, there you go. So you've got that nice neat end, and that's like that. Here's your little feather duster. And there she goes doing the dusting. So here is my duster. I hope you like it. It's really cool, isn't it? And all my other bits. Goodbye.